You're listening to The Girl Dad Show.
Welcome to Season 3 of The Girl Dad Show, where we explore the intersection of parenthood and entrepreneurial spirit. Join me and some incredible guests as we share tips and tricks for finding work-life balance and making a positive impact not only on the world, but also our families. Let's create a fulfilling life together. It's The Girl Dad Show, Season 3. Yes, Brian, Scott, thank you so much for joining me on my show today.
What is up?
Thanks for having us.
Your guys' video setup is amazing. I love it. You guys are like the real deal.
We got like pros that like tell us what to do. You know what I mean? I can't take a lot of credit for like everything that happens around my head. That's like, you know, guys that came in and was like, what are you doing on webcams and all that kind of jazz. Yeah.
I love it. Is that the same for you, Brian?
Yeah, mine's not the full setup. We have our original office right around the corner from my house, so I have the nice, pretty setup over there.
Oh, nice.
But
Very
good enough to make, whatever videos we need to make these days.
I love it. I love it. Well, let's jump right into it. Why don't you guys tell the listeners what we do for a living? Sorry, what you guys do for a living. What do you guys do for a living?
Yeah, so Scott and I, we run an e-commerce platform called SamCart. SamCart now has two other product lines. One's called Creator U, and one is an AI design tool called DropDeck. We started SamCart back in 2014. Before that, back when Scott was still in school, I graduated college, born and raised here in the kind of DC, Baltimore area. We ran, it's kind of started off as a side hustle. It was a digital content, kind of not newsletter, but kind of, I guess, like coaching, influencer, expert business. We got started in the baseball niche. We both grew up playing together, played all through high school and college together. So I just, back in like 2009, started this little baseball blog as kind of like, not a joke, like I hoped it worked, but I didn't think it would work.
I thought it was a joke when we first started, yeah.
It sounds kind of like a joke, actually, but yeah, that's awesome.
It was a lot of fun. It was just a little passion project, and I was committed to finding a way to use it to get out of this job that I hated at the time. And, it took us a while to get it up and running and start making any money, but eventually started. We were selling kind of digital products, so online courses, ebooks, stuff like that, and did that for a couple of years. In the process, got really good, and kind of fell in love with the skill of marketing on the internet. So we learned how to do Facebook ads, build fan pages. Facebook marketing back at the time was like really up and coming and popular, and a lot of people wanted to know about it. So in the process of building that baseball site, a lot of people were asking us like, hey, how are you using Facebook to build an email list of leads, a list of customers? How are you using it to drive traffic, sell your products? And so we started a second brand called Get 10,000 Fans that was essentially a carbon copy of Train Baseball. It was a blog that had some social media, channels that we were posting content to, and then we created premium digital products, courses, ebooks, coaching program, the whole catalog.
So you guys started as content creators yourselves.
Yeah.
You guys were like creators and selling products, training guides and all these things before you guys did SamCart.
Bingo. Yeah, it was 2009, right, Brian? You launched Train Baseball in the fall of 2009.
Yep.
Took forever to get the first sale. I shouldn't say forever. I mean,
it was like a year and a half.
Almost, yeah, a year and some change, something like that. And SamCart didn't come around until 2014. It was like when we got into our beta. It was like the end of 2014. So yeah, I mean, that whole time period was really us running and growing and scaling our own kind of content brand, our own content businesses, selling digital products.
It's awesome. So you guys are now selling a product to the people that you used to be, essentially. So you were the original customer.
Spot.
Yeah.
I mean, that's literally,
Yeah.
I'm sure he'll tell the story. This is exactly why we built it. Our first version of SamCart was called User Payment. And it was literally like us going to two smart guys who are now our CEO and basically our most senior engineer and saying like, hey, we've got this idea. Like, I need something to help sell my products and grow average order value and manage subscriptions. It's this kind of whole thing that we were just sort of, whatever. Anyway, and then, a bunch of people started asking like, what is this? Like, how are you guys doing this? And SamCart basically was born out of us scratching our own itch there.
Yeah, that's amazing. And just in full transparency, I'm a SamCart user. So
You are now. That's right. After
I am now. Yeah, I got introduced to you guys through the podcast, found out about SamCart, and then immediately switched Owners Club to SamCart because it's such a better product. And so it's funny that that life works that way. How this podcast is awesome. In that sense, it brought us together. Yeah, it's a really good product. I'm very happy with it. I went through a lot of different products and services, which I won't name, but yeah, I got here and it's been incredible. So I love it. I love that the journey was not that you guys were technologists. You guys were actually creators that then basically created the product you guys wanted. That's a great journey.
Sometimes I wish we were technologists and could code.
It would have
in
been
those
faster.
early days, it would have helped if we could go in there and tweak it ourselves. But no, I think it served us better to be the actual users of the software. That it's not just our customers who write in and have ideas or get frustrated by the way something works. It's us behind the scenes with that team saying like, look, this shouldn't work this way. Like to help an actual creator, like it needs to do this instead of that.
For sure. And we still use SamCart now. I mean, SamCart, we sell SamCart using SamCart. So, it's like we're still very much in those weeds and doing those kinds of things.
No way. And that's awesome.
It's fun.
That is fun. So I have a really random question I have to get off my chest, and then I want to double down on something you said, Scott. So where does the name SamCart come from?
So it's not a good story. I wish we
it's
had.
Really not a good. It's so disappointing.
I'm hoping it's one of your kids' names or something like that. Something dramatic and really heartfelt and like.
We need to make up better stories. What we need, honestly.
Yeah. Not only is it's like no uncle, no kid, no dog's name, but me and Scott, since SamCart was born, have had a handful of new children added to the family and still didn't name any one of them after it.
Zero Sam in the whole family. Yep.
When we needed a name in 2014, we're like, look, this is looking good. We love it. We think a lot of our audience will use it. So we kind of need a name now. The step one was we wanted the word cart in the name just for SEO value. Shopping cart was kind of the big search term at the time. It really isn't anymore today, but we thought, look, people need to know, like at its core, it's a shopping cart software. And so, imagine 2014 trying to buy a domain with the word cart in it was basically impossible. Every domain was taken. We tried to buy a couple. They were astronomically expensive. And so we were pretty stumped on what to call this thing. And a buddy of mine had just gotten back from some event. It was like a sales and marketing event. And I think it was called like SamCon. And the Sam was for sales and marketing. And so we thought, well, that actually works.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Our USP at the time was not only that it's kind of an e-com platform primarily for digital product sellers, although we have people selling all kinds of products, but we kind of baked in our sales and marketing conversion rate optimization strategies into it to make it convert really well. So we thought, okay, that kind of fits. It rings. It's short and sweet, easy to spell. Let's just take it.
I love it.
And that was maybe one of the biggest things about it too. Like Young was like, we really, really, really wanted something people couldn't misspell. And no one's gonna like misspell SAMC or what I mean? It's like it wasn't like some made up word where we like integriosity or something. It was like we wanted like SamCart. It was just like easy, whatever. And if the worst thing that's happened that is like I get called Sam constantly, like people message an email or whatever, like that's fine. But we now have a bunch of Sams that work here. We actually didn't even have a Sam that worked here for like years, but we gave out every year at Christmas. We have like our like, Christmas holiday party or something like that. And we give out very much after like the Dundies, we give out the Sammy Awards. And so we gave out a Sammy Award for the best, like the official Sam and SamCart, like a couple of years ago. But we had like 5 of them, and I literally was like ready to choose, and like the head of our HR was like, "You cannot pick a Sam and like deny the other 4. Like you can't do that." We gave it to a person who everybody loves, an awesome like total team player, but her name is Rita, was the official Sam of SamCart. So anyway, some fun company backstory stuff going on.
That is awesome. I love it. And then let me go back to the double click. You had mentioned that you had a CEO and CTO.
Yep.
So you guys are not the CEO, or neither one of you guys is the CEO or CTO. Explain, please. When did you guys make that transition? That is crazy. Well, first off, before we get into the kids, let's talk about how big SamCart is, because you guys are actually pretty large. And you're much larger than I thought you were when I first heard about you guys. And I was like, oh, wow, this is a much bigger company. Why didn't I know about this, right? Because I was researching heavily. So you guys may want to work on your SEO, I guess. I don't know.
We'll get there.
But I didn't. You guys are much bigger than I realized. And two, why aren't you guys the CEO?
So I was CEO in name only for the first handful of years. I mean, Scott can speak to his own strengths, but for me, my strength is not managing a whole bunch of people. I love the vision, I love the strategy, and I love to get down into the weeds and actually do marketing. Work on ad campaigns, work with the product team. Like, I like getting really into the weeds because, again, we built this product for ourselves, and I think we know the audience. So I was, again, CEO, I guess, until 2021. At that point, we had reached close to 100 employees. We'd raised a bunch of money, and me being CEO in title was getting even more stressful. That I was already out of my sweet spot at 20 employees, let alone 40, 80, 100. But now we have a board and investors and 160 people. And Justin, who has been a partner of ours for a long time, was COO from the kind of the very beginning. But he was acting CEO. I mean, that's in his blood. He comes from venture-backed big startups. He's been around the block, worked in major cities for big companies all over the place, and so he was essentially CEO anyway, just not in title. So we made it official. I think it was spring 2021, if I remember right.
So pretty recent. This is a big change for you guys.
Yeah, everyone always says that, but like I said, he was basically doing that job. Like it wasn't really a big change.
Very, very little changed, honestly.
Our day-to-days were, pretty much spent doing the same stuff.
Then I guess the inverse is more amazing. The fact that he didn't push you out sooner.
Yeah, I guess so.
He's a very gracious man. I like this guy. He seems like a very understanding and patient person.
I think we announced to the company that like CEO change was happening or something kind of like that. And I think it was literally like 2 months before was last year's Christmas party. And so the first Sammy we gave out at the Christmas party last year was the best CEO. And of course there's only been Brian and Justin. And so Justin, what did we give? We gave it to you. Didn't we give it to you, Brian?
Yeah, you gave it to
me. We gave it to the outgoing CEO. He'd like just stepped down and all this. Anyway, whatever. Yeah. We have some fun. It's a good time.
That's so funny. That's amazing. I'm glad that Justin has a good sense of humor too. That's fantastic.
Got a good sense of humor about it. Yeah.
So I have to ask, what are your titles then? Or do you guys not have titles? Are you guys just kind of amorphous founders that just kind of chameleon around the organization?
So the, I guess, main titles for both of us is we're the co-founders. So we were the two there at the very beginning. Longest tenured two folks here. My official title right now, so I'm chairman of the board, co-founder, and inside the company, chief strategy officer is my official title.
I genuinely don't know if I have a title. I probably do. If on like some official document somewhere, I'm sure there is some title next to my name. I have no idea what it is. None. Sort of like, again, like inside baseball joke is whatever, is I get called the talent a lot because in general, I'm the one who's like on a video or does this sort of thing or, whatever. I'm like the forward-facing brother where Brian prefers to be like mostly in like, just let me work and leave me alone type stuff. So co-founder fits just fine.
Oh, that's awesome. I love it. That's like the epitome of success for me, actually. Now that I hear you guys say that out loud, that's like ideal scenario. That's amazing. That actually is a great segue because if you think about being a parent and the things that I'm like struggling with as I try to build my career and I think about building my family, the biggest hardship that I have is like finding the time for both. And it sounds like you guys may have figured out a way to create that for yourselves in the last 3 years.
Yeah. I mean, I think.
Yay, nay. Did I hit it on the head? Are you guys feeling good or bad?
Yes.
What's that going?
I'm going to let Brian answer this one. I think me and Brian answers might be different on this one, like a lot.
Oh,
different.
Yeah? Okay.
My take is that CEO switch both lets me be a better employee, business owner, entrepreneur, and dad, husband, friend, and it also does for Justin because we're both in our sweet spot. It's something we enjoy doing. We can do efficiently. We don't have to spend 100 hours a week to do it. When I used to be CEO, it was 100 hours a week because I didn't know what I was doing. That's not the role that I'm built for. Does that make sense?
Totally.
So
Totally
I
makes
think
sense.
A lot of duplicative work going on there too, because Brian would do something and then Justin would just redo it, right? And so they're both stressed. And so it's been better for everybody, I think.
Yeah, I think if you are, like, my advice to other folks like me, like the high drive, entrepreneurial, creative, strategic, like those types of people, that you'll probably find out at a certain size, whether it's 10, 15, 20 people, that being the top person isn't really the right fit. But for someone like Justin that's built differently, it is, in that he should find someone to outsource the, super entrepreneurial, strategic, the people who like to come up with 1,000 ideas. Like, I think, what's that book, Rocket Fuel, that talks about every business needs.
It's like the ideator and the innovator. What is it? Innovator and
integrator and
integrator.
Something else.
No, it's innovator and integrator. Those are the two. Because basically ideas and then execution. Like those are the two.
Yeah, and that when you put those two together, like, that's the match made in heaven.
Great book.
So yeah, I think
right.
I've definitely noticed a quality of life increase since that switch, for sure. Even,
Nice.
and I was shirking a lot of those responsibilities when I was CEO, and Justin would just pick up the slack. But no, it was definitely a good move.
Yeah. I think for me, like, Brian's been doing the parent thing longer than I have, right? Brian, what year was Tegan born? 14?
2014.
2014, right? So then my oldest is 2018, right? And so, like, I'm on the newer side. And, like, in the time period in which I've now had kids, which our daughter's like 4.5, and we have a 7-month-old, or, downstairs, like, I've been so busy, and like we grew a ton. When my daughter was born, SamCart probably had 20 employees, 25, and now we're like 100, 160, something like that. And so, yeah, I've certainly just been super, super busy and all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, like, I think Brian's a lot better at like shutting it down and being like, I'm going to stop and take time and prioritize family and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like way more of a people pleaser. And so I'm like, I'll do more and more and more as people keep asking. Like, so for me, it's the parenting side of things, especially as we've been growing and doing that. Like, I've had to really figure out, like, no. There are lines. I am done at this time. I am like work Scott, family Scott. And like, for me, even down to the point of like, when I'm in this room and I close that door, like, it's like a mental switch. You know what I mean? The moment I'm out there, it's like, done. That's it. I'm leaving it in here. Like, not laptop can't come to bed. Laptop can't come downstairs. Like that type of stuff has been a really necessary thing for me, because I would spiral. And I don't know that Brian, I'm sure you felt burnt out at different times, but like, I think Brian's better at like that shut off than I am. Yeah.
Oh, like you end up carrying that over with you unless you like kind of force yourself to stop.
I would carry my laptop with me, respond to every Slack, and like do all that stuff. Like, I'd be like in the middle of like a bedtime story or something like that, and be like, "Oh, hold on, honey, like somebody needs something at work." Just like, because I like, that's just me. That's like a personality thing, right? So yeah, that's been me.
Oh,
the lesson for me has been, I've got to really bifurcate and draw those lines and like shut it down. Yeah.
Yeah. So if I can ask, so you guys both had kids. At what stage of the company? I mean, did you guys intentionally have these kids at the right time? Like that, did you guys time that with like the stability of the company, or was that like?
No, I mean, in fact, the total opposite. I had my kids at the worst possible time. My first was born 2014. Our previous business was doing great financially. We were in a great spot. Yeah, I didn't time it up that way. My wife and I have been married for 4 years at the time. So we had our fun, did a ton of traveling those 4 years before kids were so much fun. And it just felt like, look, we're 27, 28. So, I want to be a young dad and be able to play catch with my kids and do all that fun stuff. So, let's get started. That year wasn't super stressful. The business was doing great, and the previous business was doing great, and SamCart was brand new. I mean, we didn't have a customer yet. Our second boy came along 2017.
Yeah.
That was not a good time to have a baby, but it is what it is. Like that was SamCart early
What do you
days.
mean? Because in when you said that your first business was doing good, so it sounds like, oh, this stabilized.
So imagine,
now I'm gonna have a kid.
2014, we're kind of coming to a peak. Our previous business is doing great, couple $1 million a year. SamCart's brand new.
SamCart's like in beta. SamCart's like just taking off, right? Yeah.
2015, 16, 17, we're making that switch. We're turning off the spigot of the old business, so that money's going down. SamCart is growing, but not extremely fast because we're this small team of 10. We're racking up payroll and salary, trying to hire engineers and support people. And SamCart was growing, but not taking off like a rocket ship. I mean, we were, unfunded at the time. And I was still CEO, trying to figure out how to that was when it was those years that I figured out I am not CEO of this business. Like I can't be, we will never succeed if I am. It's 2016, 17, 18. Those were hard years on a bunch of fronts.
That makes a lot more sense. Because at first I was like, wait, I thought it would make a lot of sense. But it sounds like it wasn't intentional, nor was it optimal for you, timing-wise. It was more on the personal side. You're timing it on your physical ability to, hey, I want to be an active dad, and so you just did it. Nothing to do with the business. You didn't time it at all. You're just thinking about it from the personal time.
Yeah. I wouldn't make a big personal decision because of business in any way. If I had to, if the business was negatively affecting something personally, I would just shut it down. To me, that's a black and white line that, when it comes to family and kids, and I'm not going to have fewer kids because business isn't doing well. I'm not going to limit my family in some way like that. That's in my mind a non-negotiable. I'm just going to suffer through it. I'll figure it out. We're entrepreneurs here. We'll figure this out. But in the end, we want to have kids. We want to have more than one. I was going to say, I want them to be close in age because me and Scott and our sister were close in age, and I liked that. Not to say that, it wouldn't be a good family if you weren't close in age. But that was just something we wanted. So, look, business might be tough, but we're going to do what we're going to do and figure it out.
This episode of The Girl Dad Show is brought to you by Owners Club. As a business owner myself, I know firsthand how challenging the journey can be. Whether it's having someone that I can ask a very tactical question to, or just being able to share my big successes without guilt. Building a business is a lonely journey, and it does not have to be. After building and coaching dozens of businesses to success, there is one insight that is so obvious and simple, yet hard to execute. And that is network equals net worth. And so if you're a growth-minded, supportive, smart, and hardworking business owner looking for a community of like-minded entrepreneurs to build with, look no further than the Owners Club. You will make lifelong friends and build your business that works for you. You can learn more online at owners.club.
Yeah, Brian's sitting at 3, right? So I'm the younger brother. Brian's got 3 years on me, right? So my wife and I got married in 2013. Part of our story that I've shared with you, right, is we had our first in 2016, right? And so at that time period, Brian's describing this time period of those a tough part for SamCart as a business, mostly because we were in charge and making a lot of mistakes that we didn't know yet. And anyway, whatever. Maybe the most significant thing that's ever happened to me in my life is we lost our firstborn, right? So our firstborn was born December 29th of 2016. We had a son, Connors. I have a tattoo of his footprints on my forearm. He was born, he passed away a few hours after. And so for me, the next 2 years of my life were incredibly tumultuous. A lot of that, I'm sure Brian would roll into why that was a tough time as a business and just sort of, personally or whatever. But no, I think the reason that we started what we started even before SamCart was always I'm going to work to have fun in life, right? That was sort of both of our mindset going into it. And SamCart's really no different. We started SamCart because we knew it's a software. It's got bigger legs, more impact, help more people, more valuable. All those things are true. But at the same time, I don't think either of us has ever wanted to or has any interest in trading my life is my life, and that's first and foremost. My family is priority. I'm going to do these things, and if work gets in the way of that, then we'll chop off work, not the other way around, right? So anyway, but we lost our son. Obviously, there was a really, really significant moment in my life and in my marriage, and so kids and sort of subsequent kids, and we are now blessed enough to have 2 beautiful baby girls downstairs, right? Really, that was like it for me. You know what I mean? That was like what was happening at work. Like I really could not care less for several years, like about that, right? I was there to work hard. It took about, I don't know, I would say about a year until I was like ready to invest and really care about where, more than just sort of like I'm checking a box, I'm getting things done, right? But like to kind of get back into it. And so anyway, we then have our daughter Quinn at the end of 2018. And right about then, it was basically the middle of 2019. 2019 was the year in which we raised our first round of funding. And that's when things started really taking off for us, right? So my parent journey, you know what I mean? I has been like this, I don't know. It was a really big, wonderful thing for us to be able to have like 2 girls, right? And where SamCart was at the time has added like a lot of time stress and a lot of like, you know, there's more demands probably in the last like 2.5, 3 years of my working career than like the entire 10 years prior to that, right? And it also coincides with when we have young kids. But I mean, yeah, for us, I think the having kids thing was just like, that was it, right? That was our priority. That was really everything for a long time. And honestly, like work was like a distant second place. And yeah, I mean, listen, I'm very, very thankful, very blessed that like SamCart has done really, really well, right? And it's at a place that's many, many times bigger than we ever kind of dreamed when we started it. We're like, wouldn't it be insane if this was worth like $10 million someday? And like that has become true many times. Incredibly blessed and whatever. And the idea that, you know, like our life has come really full circle sort of, you know, personally. Yeah, you know, it kind of happened at the same time for us, and it was a lot to go through. And, you know, it's, I don't know, I think for us on the parenting side, right, we feel incredibly, incredibly blessed. I feel very similarly on the work side, but yeah, I think that was the priority for us, was always the family over the work side was always going to be number one, right?
That's so interesting. It's so interesting that you guys have that, the same similarities and values on that, and that the business is still so successful. It gives me a lot of hope to understand that and hear this validation story in front of my face, because, you know, the reality is so many people time these things. You know, they try to time it for these opportunities and these ebbs and flows. And the reality is that, like, you guys are like, hey, let's pick the big boulders that we want to, like, say are the landmarks, and then we'll put the medium ones in around that, and then we'll put the smaller pebbles around that, and then we'll fit in whatever else can fit in. But like, here are the big things that we want to do, and here you guys are navigating a very successful family, at least the way that you guys wanted it in priority, and then the business is now successful as well. It's a really, really great story, guys. I'm very proud of you guys.
Yeah, thanks, man.
If you don't mind me, Scott, asking, like, I know it's a little bit personal, but like, how did that happen? Like, what happened with your? Yeah,
so we got pregnant. My wife got put on bed rest about 22 weeks into a pregnancy. And for anybody who's listening, it's 40 is a full pregnancy, you know what I mean? And she got put on bed rest. There were just some weird, it wasn't anything like super crazy. We weren't like that scared or that, you know, whatever. But yeah, basically they just thought she was at risk of premature labor, essentially, right? And so we hung out on a couch for like 12 weeks. We went to, and then, I don't want to say like worst case scenario, right? But like the sort of really scary thing happened. Her water broke at about 30 weeks, and we go to the hospital, right? And so we spent, 4 days in the hospital, and they're kind of gearing up as like, hey, you could be here for indefinitely. As many weeks as it takes, you could stay in that hospital bed, not move, whatever, and like we'll deliver a kid when they're a little older and a little whatever. 4 days in, Connor just was not doing well. They didn't like some vitals, they didn't like some stuff, so they delivered him at about 31 weeks, which in the grand scheme of like premature birth is not crazy. It's really not that crazy at all. They basically 24 weeks is sort of the line at which they say like survivability rates are very, very high in modern medicine and NICUs and all this kind of stuff. Anyway, he was born. A few hours after he was born, we found out that he just had a really bad infection, and it's kind of a chicken and the egg. They don't really know how or why, right? But he passed away later that night. So he was treated in our NICU at Howard County General Hospital, at like near our house in outside of the Baltimore DC area, like where's home. And And no, I mean, that place became a really, really significant thing for my wife and I, right? The NICU is something we still partner with and talk with nurses and all that kind of stuff, because basically 2 years to the day, our daughter Quinn was born in the same NICU, right? Actually, a very similar kind of journey through her pregnancy, which we kind of knew going in, and doctors and everybody sort of kind of, came around us. And anyway, so Quinn was born at 32 weeks, and thank the Lord, had an incredibly uneventful 64-day in the same NICU where they took care of Connor, and came home and is now a beautifully, wonderfully well-adjusted 4.5-year-old girl. So, really, really significant thing for us, right? The NICUs in general, I mean, really sort of premature, like the March of Dimes and things like that. There's a lot of things for premature kids. Like that's a really, really big piece for us. And certainly the doctors and nurses who worked on both of our children, because a lot of them came back and said, like, when you guys go to have a second kid, we want to be there. You know what I mean? So same doctors, same nurses, same OBs. And
because they knew your wife, and they just kind of
because they walked with us sort of through Connor's pregnancy and eventually, of course, like losing Connor, right? And so anyway, no, it's just a really recounting that story is, of course, super emotional and super whatever, but it's also like it's one of the most important things that's ever happened to me. You know what I mean? I'm so incredibly blessed and thankful that I have these two, incredible little girls down there that we get to hang out with every day and experience parenthood in a totally different way, and look forward to when we'll all be together again, right? And that's sort of been my journey there. Yeah.
It's an amazing story, and thank you so much for sharing it. I have to ask, like, what are one or two things that people misunderstand about this scenario that you went through?
Sure.
Like, having gone through it, and because from my understanding, it actually happens a lot more than people talk about. And there's this weird stigma for not talking about it for some reason. And I don't understand that societally, because it's probably one of the most emotional things a parent can go through. Yet we don't let people talk. There's like a stigma to talking about it. And so the fact that you're actually even sharing it is, I'm like so grateful for it. But I'm also wondering, like, what are the big misconceptions that people have about this? And like, what did you learn? Like, what are the big misunderstandings coming back to work and what that looks like for you?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, listen, anyone who is listening, I'm sure there are people who are listening who have lost a kid. I mean, that's impossible to think that's not, because you're exactly right. Number one, it is a lot more common than people kind of let it on. Obviously, there's different stages, and you have things like miscarriages, which is significant in its own way, and whatever, and then sort of, losing a child and things like that. I mean, what I learned and what I came to really appreciate, right, is that yes, like, it's a lot more common, and there are a lot more people out there, right, that can help and can, whatever. I think boiling things down, like really, really complex life events, into like one or two kind of like things. And I totally understand like the question, you know what I mean? But like whoever's listening, if like that's you, or like, whatever, like you're going to go through your own experience, right? Talk to someone about it, number one, right? And then just like, man, just cling to what matters in your life. You know what I mean? Like I talked about the idea that like, I was back at work. I was doing things at work. We had this company that was growing. We had to do things. It's not like I disappeared for 6 months and could just like take time off. Although Brian was very gracious, and I did have a lot of time, for my wife and I to just get our feet under us again, right? But man, you just cling to what matters, and you do what you can. One of my favorite books, if anybody out there is you've dealt with a loss, and I don't really even mean to say even just like childhood loss, but if you're just grieving, like if that's just a part of your life, or someone in your life is grieving, and you're really trying to bridge that gap like between you, Shipwrecked was probably one of my favorite books out there, right? And so the metaphor in Shipwrecked is, if you're on a boat and the boat goes down, you can't swim back to the boat, right? You grab onto what you can and you start paddling like in a direction, right? And that was basically like the ultimate metaphor, is that this sort of life and this how I viewed my marriage, how I viewed my life, how I viewed all these things were sort of just different now. And it's not the end, it's not whatever, but it's just different. And it's like, it's your job to not try to go back to what was, but to find that new path forward, right? And I'm so grateful, to me personally, like that I have a wife who is an incredible woman, an incredible strong, person who we locked arms and got through it. I'm incredibly grateful for to have a brother and family and mom and dad and friends and everything who surrounded us and understood and were patient and empathetic. And, you know, I hope the same for anybody who ever experiences something similar. But yeah, I think that probably gets to the answer to the question. I would say absolutely reach out to who is in your life who can and can be there with you, right? And find your path forward, because it's going to be different for everybody.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Let me switch gears a little bit and ask Brian, what was your mindset because you guys are not only coworkers, you guys are also brothers. How do you navigate that in that situation, but also just in general?
No, I mean, I think, look, this is why we started the business in the first place. And to be able to go through a scenario like that and do it the way we want to do it, not have some HR department at some massive corporation decide, you know, when we can take time off, how long it has to be, you know, decide for us how we handle certain family, personal scenarios. And when all that happened, the business wasn't in a great place, but it was in a good enough place for, you know, me to say, like, Scott, like, do what you need to do. Like, I'll hold down the fort. Like, if I have to do everything myself for a year, then I'll do it. Like, it's not that big a deal. And if it hurts us, who cares? Like, it is what it is. In the end, it doesn't matter as much as this matters. It was tough for me. I mean, being the older brother, like, I usually get to go through things first and hopefully help with what's going on. Had a girlfriend first, went through a breakup first, got on the varsity baseball team first, got to go to college baseball first, you know, and like hopefully help or, you know, make mistakes that he doesn't have to make, and pass some of that along. But I have nothing to offer in that scenario. I haven't gone through that. So that was hard for sure. Just not knowing how to help. Like, I'm a person who likes to have an instant solution to something, and there was none. So yeah, I mean, of course it was extremely hard, but the blessing in all of that was we had a business where, you know, Scott got to deal with it how he needed to deal with it and take as long as he needed to, and paycheck's still going to come in, business is going to be fine. You know, that's in the end, I think what's cool about working on SamCart now is SamCart's used by people like us. I mean, these are, for the most part, small entrepreneurs and not large corporations. Nike doesn't use us. You know, it's all, you know, folks either just getting started. Some of them aren't even making money yet, but they're trying as hard as they can, up to, you know, folks doing 10, 20, 50, $100 million a year. And for the most part, a lot of those companies are still like small little teams, and the entrepreneur is still in charge and still making calls. And yes, we want to build a platform that helps them make more money and make their life easier. But in the end, like, that's the surface level result. It's we're building this thing so that they can grow their business and make money, so that they can do these sorts of things, so that when shit hits the fan personally, they're okay and they can put their priorities in the right order, whatever that means to them. And luckily we were in a place where we could do that.
One of my favorite things that we've encountered, right, is like when COVID happened, right? Like, COVID obviously brought in a crazy number of those kinds of stories of like XYZ shut down and SamCart helped me keep the lights on, right? Like those kinds of things have been incredible. I mean, I've talked with entrepreneurs who they went through like cancer and had like, I took a year off from my business, and SamCart like kept my business running while that was happening in my life. Like COVID shut down like my production studio, right? But all of a sudden now I could shift, and this helped me take things virtual and do X, Y, and Z. My storefront is gone, and now I've canceled it because SamCart's eclipsed what I was making over and those kind of things. So like it's high-minded and floofy to say like we're making an impact and whatever like that. But listen, at the end of the day, like I think of SamCart as not necessarily like I'm going to help you sell more digital products. I'm helping empower entrepreneurs to do what we have been so incredibly blessed to do as a career, right? Like we had this big get together last week in San Antonio. We had our whole business, everybody from all over the country came in, and we were in San Antonio hanging out. And it was one of the only talk that I had that week, like to the whole company, was that Brian and I started SamCart for our family, like to build a family and do those kind of things, to have the freedom to kind of live life how we wanted to live, right? And to leave a legacy. And to us at the time when we started, that legacy was more like provide for our families. You know what I mean? Like that would be crazy if we could leave something behind that was kind of there. And now, 10 years on, that's taken a really different number, a really different thing. And I was telling everybody, like all of our teams in SamCart, we're sharing these customer stories. I'm thinking like, this is our legacy. Like you guys build features and product and design things or whatever, but like the people that use this thing every day to do $100 million a month, like that's the legacy. Like we are impacting lives. I mean, what was that number, Brian? We put on the number. It was like how many people have ever touched a SamCart checkout page or placed an order through a SamCart page. I mean, it's like tens of millions of hundreds of millions of orders.
Yeah, it was like internally, we focus on our customer count. So how many people use SamCart or Creator U, and it's like 85,000 people, which is a big fun number to look at. But before that event, I told the team, like, I don't want that number. I want the number. Think of the impact all our customers are making.
Go one
Think
step
of the
further
impact,
than that, right? It's like,
you're using SamCart. Whatever you're selling, you're impacting people. So find me the number of all the folks that have purchased from our 80,000 people. And it was like 15 million people. And so that's the number we were trying to focus the team on, that like, look, you're not just building features, for me or for, this guy or this user or that user. These are going to put really good products in the hands of other people that hopefully those products help them and make an impact. Just kind of looking at the ripple effect.
It's awesome. I love it. This was awesome, guys. I do want to ask some of my more core questions, if you don't mind, because even though you guys are already kind of answering it, I do want to ask it directly because I have a weird feeling you guys have really good answers for it. What does success look like for you guys in business now?
Brian?
In business?
Well, since we have two of you guys and it may go back and forth, just answer for business and then right afterwards answer for parenting.
Yeah. I think for business, we've already gotten there. Like, yes, there are things we want to do. Like we want to get, to 100 million a year in revenue. Eventually maybe go public, maybe sell to, another, big e-com platform or whoever. That's kind of the path that we're on. I think where we are right now, we have succeeded. We built a great business that's helped a lot of people. We've had a lot of fun doing it. We built a great team of some awesome, down-to-earth, incredibly smart people. Every day we get to go to work, I think we should all remind ourselves that, like, this is success. If someday we sell or go public, it will probably be a sad day as well as a very exciting day. That the ride is what we should appreciate, that this is what we're all in it for. I think if we reach the end goal that everybody wants to, I mean, all, employees at SamCart all have a piece of the company. If we sell or go public, hopefully it is a life-changing day for everyone. But the next day, I'm just going to rally the troops right back up and come up with another idea and start marching down.
We're going to run it back.
That's what's fun,
Yeah.
That's how I would answer that, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, for business, I'm very similar to Brian, right? But in that same talk that I was kind of talking about, we had this picture from our SamCart, our Maryland office, where things started. Obviously, Young, you've been to our Austin office now. That's kind of HQ. But Brian and I drew, well, I should say Brian drew. He's much better at drawing than I am. But he drew this mountain thing, and we drew it in 2015, right? And it was kind of a timeline. It was like, okay, right now we're at 1,200 customers and this much revenue. Just trying to drew like, what is the mountaintop? Where's Everest, right? Like, what's the height we can get to? And we got a picture. Thankfully, someone had a picture of that. It was actually on that whiteboard for a long time. But where we are right now is like 2 steps below Everest back then, right? And so, that's when Brian talks about success now and just appreciating it. Honestly, like, I'm not saying we don't have goals and I'm not driven to keep going, because now they're here. It's like, exactly right. Like our next step is 100 million in revenue, and let's do X, Y, and Z and $1 billion valuation. And, it's like those things, because they're on the cusp, like we can see them, you know what I mean? So
Right.
I think we're always going to have a next step type thing, a sort of whatever. But at the same time, I have found myself extremely grateful in the last 12 months, 14 months here, of just sort of like, we're here. I mean, like, it's not a joke. When we started SamCart, we're like, wouldn't it be crazy if it was worth $10 million and someone might be like showed up to be interested to buy us for some number like that? And, we're there. We're there many, many, many times over, which is wild.
Incredible.
Yeah.
It's incredible. You guys are incredibly down to earth. I love it. These answers are like very, very refreshing. Let's go to the second part. How do you guys qualify success as parents? You've already answered a lot of this, but I want to ask directly.
Yeah.
I want a direct answer to it.
You can answer that 1,000 ways. I mean, look, we were both raised by the same parents. They've been married.
You guys do look very different, by the way. I don't know if anyone's ever told you
You
that,
might be
but-
the first person to ever say we look different before you said we look similar. Like, that's, yeah.
Yeah,
I
you guys
think
don't look alike, which is kind of fun.
Age
for me.
has kind of done that a little bit.
Is that
If I turn my
okay?
hat around, maybe it's a little closer. I don't know if I'm like
Yeah.
okay, now, how about like now? Both in Orioles hats.
Yeah. So, I mean, we were extremely blessed to have two awesome parents. They've been married for 100 years. And
Oh yeah, what is that? They're coming up
Yeah.
on 50, right?
growing up, we saw my dad go down the entrepreneurial journey. He never made it, but he always had a side hustle of some type that he was trying to make his full-time gig. So I got to watch him kind of balance that between, he was, up late trying to make this side business work, but still put wife first, kids second, business and, personal ambition third. They raised all three of us with values I think are unbreakable, to know where our priorities really lie, to know what really, matters, here. So I think in the end, I think I will have succeeded if one, my kids know my wife comes before them, and that, that we're a team. You're not going to pin us against each other. You're not we're on the same page. And that, we're, look, times might be tough. No marriage is perfect, but in the end, we're not going anywhere. Divorce isn't an option in this house. Not to, don't need to go down that rabbit hole, but that's, the values I want to instill in my kids are, one, what is your core kind of belief system, the values you believe in, and do not trade them for anything. Not business, not personal ambition, nothing. Keep them down to earth, keep them humble, remind them that most of their success in life, just like most of my success in life, is not because of some, innate talent that I have, that I developed. It was passed down to me. It was learned from mentors. It was, I'd say probably 99% of the success that we have. It's not just because we're super talented or ambitious. We've been fortunate enough, blessed enough to be around some really smart people. So I think just if they grow up with that attitude, I think we will have succeeded. And I don't think there's a prayer of them growing up with that if they don't see, me and their mom displaying that.
Awesome.
For sure.
It's tricky in our world. Both of our kids are growing up with dads that have money, and I think Scott would probably agree. My biggest fear in life is that there's some, rich, spoiled kid, and look, they're definitely spoiled. Luckily enough, they're too young right now to probably understand what some of the things that they have cost. But as soon as they're able to understand those things and make their own money, they will be the opposite of spoiled in this house. They will work for every single thing that they get. There will be no
Brian's going to
handouts
take away
here.
all our toys the moment they turn 10, right?
My dad had, he wasn't super well off, but he did great. He's, maybe upper middle class. He could have bought us our first car. He could have paid 100% of all our college, but he didn't. He made us bust our ass. And I think that instilled a lot of the things that, that we believe in, and probably a lot of the reasons why, at least a few of the things that we've tried in life have worked out. That to me is success on that front.
Cool. It's beautiful. Really well said. Scott.
Yeah, I mean, success in parenting, I think, for me, took a massive right turn when we lost Connor, right? When we lost our son, this sort of like, why are we here? I mean, honestly, like Mackenzie and me went through this very, again, incredibly thankful for the woman that I married. Nothing is maybe more thankful than that, the experience of losing a child and going through that with her, right? But no, I think, both of us just really intently sat down because there was sort of this, should we have kids? Should we try this again? There was sort of some doubt and that kind of stuff. And we'd always envisioned a life together of, we're going to get married. We both wanted kids, right? It was very clear. You saw it, right? Like that was our future. And then, after Connor, it's just completely upended, right? And in a, anyway, fast forward. Now we're here, right? Now we have Quinn. We, again, praise the Lord, have Haley, our 7-month-old here again. So, having two incredible, beautiful, healthy children here is success to us. Like they're here, you know what I mean? Like I get to wake up. I get to be a parent. Quinn ran into our bedroom this morning and just like cuddled up and hung out with us, and we grabbed a baby and did the same thing. It's just like, that is success to some extent, right? I think beyond that, because we have a lot of life left to live, right? Like that type of thing is, and I encourage anybody listening, like write these things down. Like my wife and I have, again, all really from her prompting, right? But have sort of written down, like, I don't want to say like it's like a mission statement or whatever like that, like for our family, but what are we really doing as parents and stuff like that? And so, yeah, it's pretty well defined. I think for us now at this point, of course, we're grateful they're here. Of course, my daughters can grow up and be whoever they want to be and explore that and whatever. That's great. But at the end of the day, in our house, right, I want kids who understand that they are valuable, that they know their own self-worth, right, that take responsibility for their own actions and understand personal responsibility like on that end, right, and understand that their parents love them. It's like beyond that, there's a lot of details. They're their own people. They're going to make mistakes. I don't know who they're going to be, right? But like, if I can get them to 18 and launch their lives, you know what I mean? And they understand those three things, then like for us, that's it, right? That's success.
It's awesome. Thank you guys. And do you guys have an extra few minutes? I know you guys are incredibly busy people, but it sounds like you guys have a lot more time.
I'm good. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Because I'm like, now that I know you guys, it sounds like I can actually bend your time a little bit more than I want. Okay, great. Because I would love to do my rapid fire questions and get these kind of create some symmetry in all my shows, right? So
I like it.
Okay, great. Let me jump into the rapid fire then. If you guys have a few more extra minutes for me, and we can go a little over. What advice do you have for other parents and soon-to-be parents? Brian, why don't you go first since you've kind of started this theme?
Is this, I guess, more just anyone having a parent or entrepreneur having a parent, like balancing the two, or just parenting in general?
Like, yeah.
I mean, don't try to figure it out beforehand. Like, it's never going to go the way you think. Everybody's... Any friend that's like about to have kid number one, like there's not really anything like I can tell you. Like it's gonna be mayhem. It's gonna be crazy and stressful, but it'll be over sooner than the crazy part. Like that, first couple months will be over before you know it, and you'll figure it out as you go. Yeah,
that's great advice. Great advice. Yeah, just let it ride. Let it ride.
Yep.
Scott, how about you?
I would say my best piece of advice, right, is to not take parenting advice from people who aren't yet parents. Like careful in your inputs. You know what I mean? Like if you're if you're getting parenting advice from like people who raise like that friend of yours who is like kind of a dipshit or something, like, you know what I mean? Like, careful where you take your parenting advice from, because everybody's got the opinion. There's an infinite number of books and everything out there. And yeah, I think getting advice from the right people is more important than getting more advice. So it's like, I without knowing somebody. Like that's literally it for me, especially, you know,
love
in our experience, there's been a lot of really bad advice. I'll give you that much.
I will also say, just to add on to that, because I think it's so funny, what I've noticed doing this podcast, because my podcast is literally just interviewing parents, right?
Yeah.
It's so funny how empathetic you become after you become a parent. So you're like, you have so much more judgment, and then the moment you become a parent, you're just like, your empathy level just skyrockets, and your judgment just like plummets, you know, and you're just like, they're probably having a bad tantrum, like they must have having a bad day, like to their
you
parents,
lock eyes with that parent, like, you know what I mean, like walk around Target or something like that. You lock eyes with the parent of the kid is screaming. You're just like, I get it. I get it. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
I was talking with a first time parent, a SamCart employee who was with us last week. And him and his wife were flying from Nashville down to San Antonio, and they were bringing their newborn. Newborn. It was like 6 months old, 7 months, and he was terrified. And he was like, I could just tell he's anxiety, he's got all this stuff. And I was like, listen, even if the worst thing happens, I was like, I guarantee you, no one on that plane is mad at you. Like, you know what I mean? Like people get it, like they get it. You know, it's like you think everyone's staring at you. You think that anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Isn't that so funny? I feel like you have all these ideas of what parenting is until you become one, and then just like your judgment just completely falls off the cliff. All right, let's go back to one thing you could tell yourself if you could go back in time right before you had kids. What's the one thing you would tell yourself before you had kids?
I would tell myself to buy that snoo crib before baby number 1. I didn't learn about that dang thing until baby 2, and
I love it.
Still, my second and third sleep better than my first. She's 8 years old.
I love it.
We were about to have, right before Quinn was born, Brian literally was like, do you have a snoo yet? And I was like, what do you mean? Of course, anybody who doesn't know, the snoo is this like robotic bassinet that like puts your kid back to sleep for you. And it's crazy. I think they're like almost $2,000 now, right? And at the time, I remember being like, Brian, it's like $1,200. Like, is it that much better than like or whatever? And Brian was like, if you don't buy it, I'm going to buy it for you, and you're going to pay me back, like after you realize what was it. So both of our kids slept in one, and they were objectively amazing. But anyway.
They're incredible. Yeah.
My number one piece of advice, I would say, is like try to control less. You know what I mean? Like I think in general, like I'm kind of particular. I think I'm like I have a certain way things need to go, or I want them to go a certain way. You know what I mean? And I think being less particular and understanding that like I can control what I can control, and the kid's going to do what the kid's going to do. Like that element of it, I think, is a lot easier for me now than before I was a parent. Obviously, our first experience with Connor was very, very different as well. You know what I mean? I think it made me a lot. I think losing Connor has made me a lot more gracious to my children, to my two daughters, that like when they're doing something bad or like that, like there's just so much gratitude. There's so much whatever that it's very hard to be upset with them. But even then, you know, you still like, I'm still human. You know what I mean? Like I want to control, I want to do those things. And that to me was my biggest lesson. It was like more of a look inward thing, right? And it was like control less. They're a kid, just be the parent. And like, you know, there's a level of things that you are never going to be able to control, and that's fine, right?
Oh man, that's great too. Let's go to the next one. So what is the most surprising thing that you have learned about yourself after becoming a parent? Brian.
That I actually ended up interested in like the things my kids are doing.
Oh yeah.
I thought I would like sitting through a Little League baseball game. I thought would be miserable, but when your kid's out there, all of a sudden you are like so into it. Like my wife's a dancer. Her mom owned a dance studio. So all three of my kids have dance, but the two girls are like really into dance. And I've sat through more dance recitals than maybe any human on the face of the earth. But like I actually like it. Like if you would have asked me 10 years ago, could you pay me to sit through one of those? I would have said no way.
I know. But, yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah,
that's hilarious. Funny. So personal. I love it. Scott.
I finally sat through a dance recital for the first time. Our oldest had her first dance recital. And of course, like Brian's two girls and his wife are so excited. They wanted pictures and all this kind of stuff like that. Yeah. And I'm not there yet with the dance recitals, Brian. I'll keep you posted. But no, most surprising thing that I learned about myself was like, I don't know, man, like resilience and strength that you didn't know was there. You know what I mean? Like the experience of losing a child is, you tell somebody that story, you know what I mean? You get a lot of like, I could never, right? Is always the thing. And I understand. People just, the response to telling someone that story is usually some sort of platitude because they don't know what else to say. And like, that's fine. You know, like you don't need to know what to say. Like sharing is as therapeutic for me as, you know, like I understand. Then anyway, so, But what is the stat? I want to say the stat. I'm trying to remember. The one was we have some like mentor couples and stuff like that who have gone through this as well at different stages that we've kept in touch with over the years, and it was something like 87% or something, some unbelievable enormous number of parents that lose a child. The marriage ends in divorce, right? And so I think for me, learning, like, if you had told me that was going to happen before we lost Connor, I would have said, there's no way, right? Like, you just can't, right? But I think there's a level of just resilience and strength that I think, like, I discovered in myself and discovered in my wife and discovered in our marriage that I can appreciate, right? I'm not grateful for it yet. You know what I mean? That's not a good trade-off to me. It's like, I've discovered that I'm strong, but we lost our son. Like, you know what I mean? But there are things that I can appreciate and that have become a part of who I am, right? Because of that experience. And I think that's probably the most important one for me personally. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Thank you guys for sharing that. And let's go a little more tactical here. So favorite business book, Brian?
The One Thing. You ever read that?
Thing. No. I'll have to write that one down. I love it when I find new books. This is fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
my gosh,
One Thing.
Best book of all time.
Right.
I'm going to find the guy who wrote it. I forget his name.
Yeah, I love this question because I always randomly will find some random book that I've never heard of, which is awesome.
Hey, you got to go add it to the list.
Gary
You know what I mean?
Keller.
Yeah, exactly. Well, who is it? Ian Keller?
Gary Keller.
Gary
Keller.
Keller. One Thing.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Scott, how about you?
One Thing.
Favorite
I
business
love
book?
Rocket Fuel. I mean, we mentioned it already, but I think to me it was so specific and so useful in our circumstance that kind of like we had me and Brian, we always kind of doing this thing together.
Yeah.
And it helped me really understand like and contextualize a lot about what I do well and what I don't do well, and like steering towards what you do well. And now it's a lot easier for me to say no to things because I just kind of understand like that's not my avenue. You know what I mean? Like find someone who's good at that and do, you know, anyway. Yeah. Rocket Fuel was a good one. Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yep.
All right, to bring us home, Brian, what do you do when you're not being a super founder or a super dad? What do you do for fun? What's your downtime activity?
I am exceedingly average at golf, but am on a die-hard mission. Like, I'm on a die-hard mission to get really freaking good at it. And, like, it's so frustrating for me and Scott because we were very good baseball players. Like, I was first-team All-American, and I just dove into that sport, and it was the only thing I cared about. I don't have the time to do that with golf, but that competitive side is like, I'm going to get really good at this. I really enjoy it. We have a simulator at the office. It's a ton of fun.
Yeah, that's a great one. Scott?
Yeah, and believe it or not, as brothers, we have pretty similar hobbies. I would say golf is definitely it, although we have precious little time to get any better. I'm kind of okay with where I'm at in golf. Like, I'm also not very good, but like, I don't really have the time. You know what I mean? That's not kind of it. I would say more than anything, like I play a lot of old video games. You know what I mean? Like a lot of nights of the week, you're gonna like catch me and Brian and like other guys in our team like playing video games that were made in like 2008 and like stuff like it's like we'll play like these old computer games from high school that I love and stuff like that. So that's like the kids are in bed. You know what I mean? Like get in touch with your roots.
I love it. This is great. You guys have a lot of similarities, but a lot of differences. But the core values are like very strong in your family. Now I kind of want to interview your parents. Makes me want to ask them to be on the show.
Our dad would love nothing more than to talk on a podcast about.
You better
parenting.
block off 8 hours if you're going to interview my dad.
Hey, Brian, Scott, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show. I really, really enjoyed our conversation, so much more than you realize. And I can't tell you how meaningful it is that you guys were so honest and transparent with your stories. And I will say congratulations on all your success, both in your living your core values, but also just on the business success as well.
Awesome. Thanks, man.
A lot of fun.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you again for listening to the Girl Dad Show. To help our show grow, please let us know who we should interview next by filling out the form on our website or commenting below.